Welcome to Psychology 586 Attitudes, Lecture 1, The Concept and Evolution of Attitude in Psychology. Introduction. In this lecture, we shall attempt to consider different definitions of attitudes by various authors and writers over the years. This exercise is meant for you to know the emphasis and historical development of attitudes. Objectives. At the end of this lecture, you should be able to 1. Define and discuss attitude as a concept in human relationships. 2. Explain the evolution of attitudes. Content. Humans are naturally opinionated. We form likes and dislikes almost from the moment we first gain consciousness. Our stances on issues and our attitudes about things are directly linked to our innermost thoughts and feelings. In modern society, we are constantly bombarded by advertisements and entertainment which works hard to influence or change these thoughts and feelings. This is the art of attitude change, and it is important to understand what attitudes are and how they can be affected. Follow the link. Our teachers, friends, families, and so on convey their beliefs to us on a daily basis on television, magazines, billboards, and even people's cars and bodies. Advertisements are everywhere. But to what degree do these things change the attitudes and behavior of people? To answer these questions, it is important to understand what an attitude is. What is attitude? Let me start by giving you some definitions of attitudes. An attitude is a mental and neural state of readiness, organized through experience, exerting a directive or dynamic influence upon the individual's response to all objects and situations with which it is related. Albert, 1935. A learned orientation or disposition towards an object or situation which provides a tendency to respond favorably or unfavorably to the object or situation. Rukesh, 1968. Attitudes have social reference in their origins and development and in their object, while at the same time they have psychological reference in what they inhere in the individual and are intimately enmeshed in his behavior and psychological makeup. Warren and Jahoda, 1973. The term attitude should be used to refer to a general, enduring positive or negative feeling about some person, object or issue. Petty and Cassiopo, 1981. An attitude is a hypothetical construct that represents an individual's degree of like or dislike for something. Attitudes are generally positive or negative views of a person, place, thing, or event. This is often referred to as the attitude object. People can also be conflicted or ambivalent toward an object, meaning that they simultaneously possess both positive and negative attitudes towards the item in question. According to Rosenberg and Holland, 1960, attitudes are predispositions to respond to some class of stimuli with certain classes of response. These classes of response are affective, what a person feels about the attitude object, how favorable or unfavorable it is evaluated. Cognitive, what the person believes the attitude object is like, objectively. Behavioral, sometimes called cognitive, how a person actually responds or intends to respond to the attitude object. According to Igley and Chaikin, 1998, attitudes are judgments. They develop on the ABC model: affect, behavior, and cognition. The affective response is an emotional response that expresses an individual's degree of preference for an entity. The behavioral intention is a verbal indication or typical behavioral tendency of an individual. The cognitive response is a cognitive evaluation of the entity that constitutes an individual's beliefs about the object. Most attitudes are the result of either direct experience or observational learning from the environment. An attitude is a psychological tendency we express when we evaluate someone or something. It may be positive, negative, or neutral. Attitudes often have less influence on behavior than we might expect. Correlations between attitudes and such behaviors, as signing petitions or writing letters to government officials, are often quite small. This may be due in part to the fact that opportunities to behave in accordance with our attitudes are not always available. Subjective norms, beliefs about what other people think you ought to do, may also interfere with acting upon our attitudes. In some situations, however, behavior and attitudes are more consistent, particularly when people are knowledgeable about the issues involved. The focus of one's attitude, or what they are evaluating, is called the attitude object. According to Martin et al., 2007, attitudes can be broken down into 3 different parts, which together create an evaluation of the attitude object. Affective component. This consists of the emotional reactions people have to attitude objects. For instance, if you have a favorite football team and the team won a match, you might have feelings of happiness or excitement. If there is a team you do not like, you might feel annoyed when the team plays or wins a match. Behavioral components. These are actions or observable behavior that is resulting from an attitude object. If you hear a song you like on the radio, then you might go home and research the singer so you can buy their album. You might then spend all your free time listening to this album. The attitude object has changed your behavior and actions. Cognitive component. These are the thoughts and beliefs people have about an attitude object. For instance, you might like a footballer because of his or her hairstyle. You might also believe that the footballer is a lot like you, which makes his or her style easier to relate to. When these 3 components are combined, they work to create an overall attitude about an attitude object. Studies have suggested that attitudes might be linked to one's genetic makeup. For example, it has been reported that identical twins share many of the same attitudes, while fraternal twins differ in opinion. Temperament and personality are formed in part by our genetics, and these factors can influence the attitudes we form. For instance, someone who is born with a mellow, easygoing personality might prefer listening to soft rock rather than heavy metal. However, it should be noted that such findings are not entirely conclusive, because studies have also shown the influence of environmental factors on attitude and attitude formation, meaning that attitudes are not only the result of genetics, but are also formed because of social experiences that involve the affective, behavioral, and cognitive components. Summary. The students have learned the following. Attitudes are generally positive or negative views of a person, place, thing, or event. This is often referred to as the attitude object, the different components of attitudes. End of lecture 1. Thanks for listening.